Welcome, welcome, welcome to Manifesting Miracles. My name is Michelle Juanita Lamont, and for about 4.5 years, I've been doing that intro and telling you exactly how to get through life, manifesting things from seemingly nothing out of the air into your reality. And I've changed so many hundreds of thousands of people's lives and really changed my own. And I thought, you know what I need to do is how to be your bestie, your manifesting bestie. And so this episode is going to really just come from my heart. And if you didn't know me or don't know me, this is going to be a perfect episode to get to know me. And if you know me, maybe this is some inside track into how to become your own manifesting best friend. So my name is Michelle Juanita Lamont, and I didn't start out being a metaphysical, neuro-based manifesting expert of any kind. I am pretty much a pragmatist who doesn't really believe in anyone or anything. And I believed in what I could control, the addictions that I could control, being an alcoholic, being addicted to porn, reeling from my childhood, seeing it as a victimhood instead of portals, understanding that I was collaborating with the pain and not the promise. And that is something that I really think that is important to understand as you listen to these podcasts and you try to connect with me and you try to connect with your higher self. I want you to think of it this way. What if we're all in a time traveler's bubble? And there's a version of you in some other quantum reality that is looking at this version of you right now and saying, oh my gosh, if you would just go this way instead of that, if you would do this instead of this, if you would just trust your intuition, you could have such a different outcome with your experience as a human on Earth. And to some of you, that might sound wild and controversial, but to those of us who are the awakened and that are awakening and that are on our spiritual path, it sounds like coming home. Because you collaborated with all of this energy to become a human being on the planet Earth. You decided to incarnate in this time. It's not because your mother and father had sex and you came here. Like, I guess that's the scientific way of looking at it in the practical and anatomical way. But you are a spiritual being, and this is a living universe. The earth is living. The birds and the trees are living. You can work with energy like water and fire and the earth's elements, and really manifest things into your reality. You can use all of the elements, air, fire, earth, water, and then, of course, plasma. We're all in plasma right now, but that's going to be for another discussion. And we are all in this timeline continuum because we are bumping atoms against each other and really trying to understand what the hell are we doing here on Earth. And we're here for the Great Awakening first, okay? So I want to remind you that you're here because you chose to be in this timeline, and the crazier the chaos is, the more exciting the opportunities are. And so as you are pushed into the realm of fear and consciousness that nothing is going to change and that nothing is getting better and that everything is being eroded, you're also giving them, the elites who are trying to minimalize your abilities and say that you aren't who you are, and they're trying to destroy the planet so they can control everything into one universal order. You're here to be a disruptor. You're here to be a co-collaborator with yourself, not with them. And so every single time you're bumping up against fear. And what is fear? Fear is your highest self communicating that a certain area or a certain thing is still not a portal forward. I want to say that again. Fear is a blocked portal. And it's here to recognize that this is the hardest way, but it's also going to be the truest way. So if you think about it in the biggest realm of everything, you might think of yourself as a grain of sand on a beach or a grain of sand in the Sahara Desert, and you pull out from the earth, and who would ever notice you? Well, I do. And so does the universe. And you are honored and ruled by God, not the God of a religion or the God of a book, but the God co-creator source, one essential energy that has created multiple universes. In fact, there's nearly almost 1 trillion. We're in one. And our planet has a sun and a moon. But just a couple of planets over, you got Jupiter. They got like 9 moons. You don't even know what's inside the ocean. We're not even allowed to look past Antarctica. No one's allowed to look at Antarctica. Why? Okay. And so as we all put on our tin hats and we start to say, like, what the hell is going on? The distractions and the chaos are part of your ability to reframe and reconnect with who you are and what you came here to be. And so the more that you sit around debating whether it's going to be worth it to try, the more that they're siphoning off your energy. See, this is a war of our souls, of our energy. And once we feel defeated, whether as a nation or as an individual or as a whole planet, then the evil or the dark energy has proven that the darkness wins and defeats the light instead of the light defeating the dark. Have you ever been in a completely dark room where there's no light whatsoever, and a tiny little sliver of light comes in and you feel so amazing? You're like, oh my gosh, look at that little ray of light. That's you, that little grain of sand, looking out from the universe, from the ether, all the way down here and saying, you matter. You're bringing light into a dark room. And if enough of us face our fears and become the biggest and the most manifested version of ourselves, that little light becomes brighter and brighter and brighter and glaring until you can't ignore it, until the matriarchy is over here taking over the entire planet. And all world order must be bend to the knee of love, bend to the knee of Christ consciousness, bend to the knee of what it is that you came here to do. Have true feelings and emotions and not be intimidated or scared or made to feel stupid or put baby into the fucking corner about how it is that you're supposed to co-collaborate. You didn't come from this planet. You're not a tree. You're not a bush. Those are the only natural inhabitants. The original inhabitants of the planets are the greenage and the foliage. And we have been fighting with them ever since. And they're going to win and we're not. They're always going to be here and we're not. And hopefully we don't destroy it all in the process. And so when I say to you, I wanted to be your manifesting bestie, let me tell you how I got here. So I was born to a father who was an alcoholic and an entitled white man. He went to the finest preparatory schools in America. It's called CHOAT. It's a system that the Kennedys went through. And I am a direct descendant of William Williams, who signed the Constitution. So I am in a society called the Daughters of the American Revolution. That's how white my white side is. And I'm also a very first generational breaker on my mother's side. Nobody had ever been born in America, not my brother, not anyone. I was the very first one, and I was born in Dallas, Texas. And when my mom just knew that she was going to have a girl, she said to her friends in America, where's the biggest state? Where should I have this golden light child of mine? And they said, Texas. And so my mom made my father move to Texas so that I could be born with the biggest opportunity. It's just the way that she thought. And then she died. And when she died, I was only 10 and a half years old. I had no idea that my last birthday at Chuck E. Cheese would be the last time I would ever see my friends or my family in that capacity again. My mom died July 17th. And before my 11th birthday, October 25th, I would be given away to an orphanage in Waco, Texas by my biological father. He kept my brothers. I'll let that sink in. And then my little 11-year-old body was humiliated, embarrassed, tortured, used, abused, and anything in between. And so was my brain. and so was my spirit. But my mom kept visiting me there in my dreams and in reality. And one time I wanted to jump off a building because I couldn't stand the abuse anymore. And she appeared to me on the top of the building and she said, Michelita, pero tienes mucho más de hacer en esta vida y vas a cambiar mucho vidas. And I knew in that moment that there was just something bigger that I had to do, but I really didn't know what it was. I went on to go to college, and then I found out that my father was going to put my younger sister into the orphanage, and I left Arizona State to come back to Texas to save her, and I tried to be her guardian and her adoptive parent, but she was rebellious and bad and kept getting arrested and pretty much destroyed the chance that I had to help her. I had then met my husband, and we were married, and it was a vicious, vicious marriage. And I became a raging alcoholic. I was addicted to porn. I really could not have connection because I hadn't healed from the essays that had happened to me growing up where I grew up. And I drank, and I was very successful in business because I wasn't going to be a loser. In my mind, if I could just figure out a solution. So when my husband was a bad husband, I worked around it. When my friends were using me, I worked around it. When my family didn't see me, I worked around it. And I found a workaround for everything until I just decided to kill myself. And so after I filed for divorce, I met my husband on my birthday. I got married on my birthday, and I filed for divorce on my birthday. Subsequently, in 2020, I would create this podcast on said birthday. And so your birthday is your new calendar year. So this is how I came to hate myself. And so the more that I hated myself, the more that people could abuse me and take advantage of me because like attracts like. And what you focus on, you find. And so then I divorced him and decided to unalive myself. And then that was interrupted. And when that got interrupted, my whole spiritual awakening happened. And that's episode 2, so I won't go into it. And so from there, I went on to study and get certified and degreed in mindfulness cognitive therapy. And then I went on to manifest a one-on-one with Oprah, an opportunity to speak at TEDx, be a TEDx speaker, and a client that paid me enough money to go and do retreats and studying for about 18 months while I was doing work for her, both on PR level and a spiritual level. And then I had to leave the PR world officially. And during COVID, I kicked off this podcast with no followers and no social game or anything like that. Just a heart and intuition and a knowledge that I knew I could change your life. And so if we are all time travelers and I am some version of you from the future, I want you to know that I'm here to help you and that I am simply you in a different version with maybe more time to study and maybe more time to comprehend and teach these things. And that's my course. And your course is to get off your path. I now lovingly call myself a death doula. And what I mean by that is if I have entered into your life, it's because the old you must die. It's time for you to stop saying, I don't have enough followers. I don't have enough money. I don't have the opportunities. Michelle, I'm barely making it. It's because you're loyal to that version of yourself. You're not loyal to the version of yourself that succeeds. You haven't made a commitment. You haven't made a vow to yourself. You haven't said, I will do whatever it takes to make sure that I love this person, this vessel to the highest degree, because you're not in love with yourself. You tolerate the shitty relationship. You tolerate the shitty relationship with your children or your family or your friends. You tolerate the shitty work. You tolerate the issues that are going on in the government that you're subjected to. You're tolerating this one world order and you're ignoring the fact that the earth is dying. You're ignoring the fact that you are not happy. You're ignoring the fact that none of this is really changing your life. And so every single day, it's Groundhog's Day to some degree or another. And so you're like, maybe the aliens will just come and take it all. Maybe there'll just be a nuclear bomb. Maybe I'll just get a disease. And so some people get to check out because they manifested that disease or that sickness or that illness or that pain. But we know that everything is energy. Everything is energy. And energy cannot die. If you take an atom and you split it 1,000,000 times and you smash it, it doesn't die. It transforms into something else and something else and something else. And so the areas in which you are blocked, you're not actually blocked. You're just refusing to change those systematic ways of being. And so you're committed to this old persona that is done, dead, and buried. And I'm here to tell you that it's time to move past that. Because fear is the highest communication that an area is blocked, but fear is just a belief. And a belief is a feeling. And that feeling is attached to an emotion. An emotion of something that you can't recall because our prefrontal cortex cannot recall anything from the ages of birth to 7. But your subconscious mind starts taking over. And then your amygdala says, hey, you're not that smart. And then your prefrontal cortex says, but we were in so much pain growing up, we can't do anything about it now. So we're just going to pretend that this is our reality. But what we know is that your personality becomes your personal reality. And because that personality has been twisted and turned and masticated and manipulated and marketed to, you don't even know who the fuck you are. And so every time you think, I can't do this or I can't do this, you start to circle into a belief loop. And so then that belief loop becomes your constitution. And then that constitution becomes the law and order of you. And so how do you get out of it? Well, you're already out of it because you're listening to this. Now, every step you take after this is a step towards that new reality, that bigger and that brighter version of you. I'm not going to be, Pollyanna and say that like everything is sunshine and roses. But I'm going to say that the version of me that became so successful that she was an entrepreneur, started her first business with $250 in a car that went in first, third, and reverse, and turned that into $1 million. And she was $37,000 in debt in year 3 and doing over $1 million in sales with 65 employees before she was 30 is still here. And then the one that decided to start pitching to TV stations about her business and just went on television and started talking to people and started selling her dog business, the highest version of her knew that she would one day be a TV media publicist. And so then all those years on the camera allowed me to be an expert off the camera. And then that led to this. But every stage that I went through and all the stages that I've been on all had to face fear in a way that wasn't debilitating. It understood that fear showed up as a way to say, this way forward, my love. And if you can't hear that version of yourself, this death doula is here to tell you that this is exactly who you've always been. And behind the fear and the masks and the insecurity and the emotions was a belief that somebody taught you, a belief that whatever your life looks like now was something that they were hoping would be easier for you than it was for them. And maybe you weren't like me. You grew up without people actually supporting you. I don't think I ever got a hug from anyone non-sexual from the age of 11 until like I was 20 or 21. Lots of people touched me, though. So, beliefs won't work if you break the belief down. Beliefs only work because you believe them. So what if you took those thoughts and turned them into new beliefs? Such as, you have to say that it wasn't the money, it wasn't the education, it wasn't anything. You believed early on to be indoctrinated into a system that taught you that fairy tales were not real. So here's this fat white man that shimmies down the chimney and gives presents to every single good boy and girl, he, she, they, them on the planet on the same night. And then you find out it's grandma and grandpa and mom and dad, right? Or you lose a tooth and you get $1 under the pillow. Oh, that was also them. Or there's a basket and there's a little bunny that runs around and he shits out chocolate eggs. All of these fairy tales made you believe that belief was wrong and that it was just all a fantasy and a lie. The magic has not left the world. You have left the magic. You are a magical, quintessential being that in science we know that every atom has if you take a quantum energy and you entangle it in with another end of it, no matter where that is, how far the distance is, it reacts the same way as the one in the present reality. So when you hit a new version of yourself, the other end of the spectrum will come full forward and become your reality. It's like the double split experiment. Nothing changes until you observe it. And so you're observing yourself from the point of it doesn't work. But the universe is just waiting for you to switch to your own frequency. The universe is just interested in what you're going to co-collaborate. And the universe is fully prepared and ready for you to die and let that old version of you go. Because it's not the money, it's not the education, it's not that you don't have opportunities. All of us get the same 24 in a day. It's that you have committed to be loyal to a version of yourself that isn't blessed, that isn't divine, that isn't protected, that isn't all-knowing. And so if for just a minute, me being your manifesting bestie, I want to tell you this from the bottom of my heart. What if I'm just a version of you from the future? And I'm sitting here holding this microphone because you won't listen to you, but maybe you'll listen to me. I want you to understand that fear is the way forward. And it sounds so scary to jump without a net. And while everything is falling apart, it seems like the worst time to start a business or to go off of the grid or to go do something different. But you came here to incarnate to do all of that and more. And even Jesus, my favorite, Jesus Christ, he said, everything I can do, you can do, and And so if you don't want to take it from me, take it from him. The entity, the energy, the being, the light, the frequency, Christ consciousness. Because it all requires that you have empathy. Empathy for people who cannot help you. Empathy for people who you will never meet. Empathy for the animals and the planet and the people that are suffering. But not to the ruin of your own life. You see, when you get to that place where you are fully fulfilled and you are living as the highest version of yourself, you will find ways to change this world. Slowly, softly, confidently, sometimes boldly, loudly, big, brash. But then you get too big and the Illuminati or the elite want to control you and own you. And we hear all those stories and we don't know what's true and what's not. But some of it seems very reasonable, doesn't it? And then you look at the hieroglyphics of the Egyptians, and what were they trying to tell us? That our interior bodies are actually the whole world itself? Yeah, kinda. And why did all these civilizations get wiped out and all these history books get rewritten and rewritten and rewritten? And aren't we in one right now? And so for your part of this story, are you really going to be this version of yourself and call it a win? I don't think so. I think the biggest version of you came here to do a lot more and to be everything that you're saying you can't. And you don't need $1 million, and you don't need a sugar daddy, and you don't need to go back to school and get an education. You just need to start with something today, right now. And if you don't know where to start, then book a session with me. I'll help you figure it out. I have one-on-one coaching. I have digital programs. I have live group classes. I even have a whole fucking community that I created called Manifesting Miracles Academy. And every single month, we have an audio class so you can listen anytime you want to how to regulate your nervous system, because you know your girl is a science dork. And then we have 2 live workshops, a full moon workshop and an activation workshop. Last night, I just hosted Tarot Class 101. Last month, we were doing Heart Love. And so every single month, there is an audio class for your nervous system, 2 live workshops, and every Monday, a forecast of what to do that week based on your astrology. And then we have a live community message board and retreats. So, do I have all the answers? I don't think anybody could even comprehend that because our brains are so tiny. But I know one thing for sure. I've lived 1,000 lives in this life. And I want you to understand that you are barely scratching the surface of what's possible and probable and pragmatic once you get past the fears. You see, you're a co-collaborator in this reality. You're not sitting here waiting and watching the wheels going round and round. You are the whole fucking bus. And you're the whole engine and system. You're the alpha and the omega. And you need to start acting like it. And I hope that as your spiritual best friend, this podcast, this intimate, revealing episode with no motive, no theme or direction, no analytics, no what should I be talking about now, just from my heart to yours, does something to elevate you, illuminate you, and create a bigger and better version of you. I know that it's so hard when you're sitting in the fear and you're looking at your bank account or you're looking at this relationship you can't get out of. I let somebody weigh me for years. I let somebody insult me, berate me, humiliate me, degrade me. Because I was taught that as a child. So when my husband did it, it seemed normal. Until I woke up. I actually had fractured or had some kind of split in my ligaments that you couldn't be healed from. And I had fallen downstairs with my dogs. And my ex-husband wouldn't take me to the ER because he said I was a crybaby. And when I got to the ER at 5 o'clock in the morning, my foot was blue. And they said, "Did he do this to you?" And I was like, "No, I did it to myself," but I couldn't drive. And we didn't have health insurance. And so finally I convinced him to take me to the ER, and the doctor was so pissed that I wasn't taken to the hospital for hours. He was like, "This is one of the most painful things that you can have because you can only put it in a cast. You can't do surgery." And I had a cast from my foot to my hip, and I hobbled on crutches and worked 8 hours a day. And this is not to besmirch him. I've forgiven him, and I hope he has a beautiful and long and happy life. Because what do I care what happens? But it's to say that you never know. On the outside, it looked like I was so successful with all these stores and all these positions, and then being a publicist with all these big brands and names. But I was just a scared little girl who didn't know how to stand up for herself. And so I internalized it. And I hated myself. And I allowed people who hated me to be in my reality. And now that I'm in love with being Michelle Juanita Lamont, I have like 3 people in my world. Those are the 3 best ones. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Because I never have to worry about what I say or do or think. I never have to worry about my ideas or my wins being scrutinized or being jealous of. because I've curated a life that's filled with love and support and resources and opportunities, because I healed my nervous system, because I'm not in fight, flight, fear, fornicate, freeze anymore, because I learned to use my quantum energy to collaborate with the universe. This is so much bigger than you realize, and you're playing it so small. And you're never going to be on your deathbed and say, damn, I wish I'd played it smaller. Damn, I wish I'd been more conservative and tried less. You know that won't happen. And so if this is your wake-up call, bestie, let it be your wake-up call, bestie. Now, my name is Michelle Juanita Lamont, and I'm a proud daughter of a Colombian immigrant. And I am the proud Life Path 9, Scorpio, Gemini, on a full moon, baby version of me. And I'm so honored to be able to sit here in this beautiful manifested beach house talking to you today, because there was a point in a time in my life where I never thought that this version of me would ever see the day of light. And so I want you to know that the biggest version of you is in the room right now, and they're cheering and they're clapping and they're plotting and they're planning. But you got to get out of your own way, baby. So come on into this side of the world. Come on into the Manifesting Miracles Academy life. Come on into my reality, where we understand exactly what it means to be a co-creator, and that you and God are not separate, and that you can use your quantum energy and change your frequency to co-collaborate anything in this world. Now, if this is your first time listening, I want you to go back and listen to every single episode, whether it's on YouTube or on some sort of streaming platform. And then I want you to know that the first month of Manifesting Miracles is always free. So I'm going to buy you 30 days with me, because that's how much I believe in what I've created. And I want to see if you put a little time and effort. If you give this 120 days, what would your life be like if you committed to this for real? And I always close the same way. And I say, everything is always working out for me 3 times. And then everything is always working out for us 3 times. Lost your job? That's okay. Everything's working out for us. Lover doesn't want to love you? That's okay, because everything is working out for us. Just lost your best friend? Don't know who you're going to talk to? Don't have any clue about what's happening? That's okay, because everything is working out for us. You see, everything that changes is a new portal and a new direction for the universe to collaborate something new. So yes, it can be scary, but in reality, there's only one you. And until you process this energy, you're always going to be stuck in fight, flight, fear, fornicate, freeze. And so when you have a regulated nervous system, you then have what it takes, because what it takes to manifest is faith, calm, and the ability to let things go. Now, let's close like an expert of Manifesting Miracles. And please click the button on my show notes and join Manifesting Miracles. You know that spending a couple of months on yourself would be the greatest gift you could give everybody in your life. Because when you are completely full of yourself, you can actually pour from the loving, gifted, talented, and amazing version of you that is just behind the other side. And then we're going to be doing Candles and Spells 101. We're also going to be working with archangels this year in the classes. Every single month, it's just a different exploration of spiritual ways to communicate with the highest and the biggest version of yourself. I personally work with Hecate. I work with and believe in Christ consciousness, and that there is just one creator of everything. I don't know what it is, but I call it the God of Michelle. So I invite you to, as Dolly starts barking at the end, here we go. I have a dog named Dolly Parton and a dog named Wayne Dyer. Let's get into it. And 3, 2, 1, us are me. Everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. Us. Again, everything is always working out for us. Everything is always working out for us. Everything is always working out for us. So you are loved, you are known, you are protected, and you have way more power than you believe. So always and in all ways, be the version of you that takes fear and transmutes it and becomes the alchemist to manifest your own miracles. I hope to see you in my next Zoom on manifesting miracles. If not, then at least go in and listen to another episode and send it to 5 people today. All right, producers, it's time to cue that motherfucking music. I love you. I'm Michelle Juanita Lamont, and this has been Manifesting Miracles.